What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 89 of the Book Binge, where this Thursday episode, I'm asking for recommendations again, but this time a little bit more directly. And this one is going to be for short stories, rather than, say, a full series review of Sun Eater and kind of broadly ask at the very end of the video, just like, hey, these are some of the things that I liked about the series. What are some sci-fi things that you think I might enjoy as a result? This time, I'm not necessarily going over things that I have read and know I enjoyed and therefore asking for recommendations based off of that. This time I'm just kind of going for short story recommendations in general because here at some point I am planning on starting a sort of new segment or series on the channel, either short story Saturdays or short story Sundays. Not entirely sure which. Might call it like serialized Sundays or something like that, just because a weekly, I don't know. I'm still kind of workshopping stuff like that. But either way, I do want to start a new segment at some point, specifically focused on short stories, because I haven't read many short stories, and I know that there's a ton of authors, especially older ones, who have written a lot of really in-depth or really, you know, I don't know what the term is. Like I want to say deep, but that's not the word that I'm thinking of. Who have written a lot of short stories that can be deeply analyzed, I suppose, is how I'll put it, because I can't think of a better way. I can't think of a more eloquent phrase, let's say. So I kind of want to do this thing where, maybe every fortnight or something. Maybe I'll do it on Saturday or on Sundays, so that opposite of my Fortnight on the Isle episodes, I do a video on a short story every couple weeks and just kind of analyze a short story that I read and talk about some of the things that I liked or didn't like about them, or go into a little bit more of an analysis type of thing where I try to understand some of them, because I know that there are some short story authors who I definitely have to try to actually explicitly analyze rather than just say, oh, it was a good short story, all of that kind of stuff. As such, I do want to add over, the coming months, some short stories into my repertoire, into my monthly reading wrap up and TBRs, let's say. I want to start reading some more of those so that I can cover a little bit more of them, give me a little bit more variety of stuff to cover on the channel, and also just because short fiction is often overlooked. But I know that some of my viewers are a little bit more versed in kind of this area than definitely I am, so I'm curious to know what some of you might say. So let's go over some of the short stories that I've read first, so that you kind of have an idea of where I'm coming from, so you don't just recommend things that I've read. Well, to be fair, I've basically not read any. I've read nearly all the short stories that have released for the Sun Eater. So, the 2 volumes that are currently published of Tales of the Sun Eater, as well as another story or two from the Sun Eater universe, including novellas. But I already technically reviewed those volumes, and I'm not going to do all of the individual stuff. Maybe someday I'll do an individual one on a couple of the short stories, the ones that have a little bit more to like analyze and look into. But that's not something that I'm like planning right now. Maybe I'll do a couple of those as like specific segments with Rockio himself. That's an idea that I just came up with right now, so I might ask him about that. But either way, beyond Tales of the Sun Eater, there aren't a whole lot of short stories that I have read in my life. There are a few, but the ones that I have read were all long enough ago that I could basically say that I haven't read them, that I don't remember them enough to say analyze them. There's one or two that I do remember quite well, but I would still like to reread them and analyze them, if you know what I mean. So there's several authors, several collections and stuff that I definitely know that I should read here at some point. I'm going to go over those in just a minute, but then obviously there will be ones that I'm not aware of. So the ones that I do know that I need to read are ones that I'm going to initially start the series off with. So the complete Tales of Edgar Allan Poe. I'm currently working through the poems. I want to analyze some of those at some point later, maybe in a couple months. I'll do a top 10 poems by Edgar Allan Poe, but there are plenty of short stories by Poe that I have read that I really enjoyed, one in particular that I still remember quite a lot of, but these are some of the ones that I want to start with. Of course, I also know I need to read some H.P. Lovecraft. In fact, with some H.P. Lovecraft and Poe, and especially any authors whose short stories are in the public domain, definitely recommend some of those ones that you enjoy to me, like specific stories, because with some of these short stories, if they're short enough, I might do a reading of them, like do videos where I'm like actually reading the story and then at the end analyzing them or something like that, just because if they're in the public domain, I'm allowed to do that. So Poe and Lovecraft are definitely a couple of the authors that I know to read that I want to read and that I want to experience more of, but then there are a few more authors as well that I am aware of that have done short stories that I think I should analyze as well, such as Jorge Luis Borges. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I know that some of these short stories would be an absolute trip to try to analyze based off of the one single one that I've read that was maybe like what, 2 pages, maybe 3 pages. He has a lot of short stories I think that are like just a couple pages and that's it, but are apparently very thought provoking. I didn't find the one that I read to be super enjoyable, but I think I just wasn't reading it in the right way, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to go over some of those and be a lot more open minded with that. I guess there's Herman Hesse or Hesse. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Again, I'm sorry for pronouncing any and all of these incorrectly. If I am, I apologize. There's some of those. I think he's done short stories. I forget for sure, but if he has, I'm sure I could try to get some collections and read through a couple of those and trying to analyze them. I know that Leo Tolstoy has done some shorter fiction. He has like Anna Karenina and War and Peace, which are huge novels, but then pretty much everything else he has ever written was like a novella length or shorter. Even tales like The Death of Ivan Ilyich is pretty short, so I kind of want to go into some of those. I think that would be a pretty neat place to go into reading some more Tolstoy, since I did enjoy War and Peace, and I will be reading Anna Karenina later this year. I'm not sure. I know there's one or two others that I'm forgetting to mention off the top of my head that I can't quite recall at the moment. But of course, this is where I can just kind of generally go into the ones that I'm not aware of. Clearly, if I'm not aware of short story authors or authors who have, you know, really good, really high quality short stories, I can't list them here, but you definitely can if you are aware of them. This is where I'm directly asking you for recommendations. If you have any recommendations for some short fiction you would like to see me cover on this channel for a short story Sunday or something like that segment, leave those in the comments below and try not to recommend, all of the ones that I just listed unless it's specific stories that you think I should go through. Because in regards to Poe and Lovecraft, there's a good chance I'm going to go through all of them in time. Give me enough years and I'll do that. But ones like Borges and Hesse and Tolstoy, if you have a particular favorite, you can recommend those. But otherwise, I would like recommendations for new ones that I'm not aware of so that I can put them on the radar. And especially if you're somebody who's been following the channel for a while and you kind of know where my tastes are, things that I enjoy, things that I personally find thought-provoking. If you know of any particular short stories or authors that you think I would really click with based off of some of those tastes, you can also leave those below. Either way, this was a very short video, and that's really the end of it. I don't really have that much more to say. I just know that I want to cover more short stories on the channel. I have some that I know of that I want to get through or get to at some point, but there are plenty more that I'm sure I'm not aware of, so please let me know about them below. I'll see you guys next week.